In 2010, the future of 2 World Cups came down to one room in Zurich. 22 men, 2 future World Cups, 1 decision. Then came the announcement.
Organized in Russia.
And then,
Qatar.
one was a political heavyweight, beating more familiar European bids. The other was a tiny desert state with extreme summer heat and no real World Cup infrastructure. And almost immediately, the football world started asking, how did this happen? Because the World Cup may be football's biggest dream, but the dream does not belong to the people who love it most. It is awarded by an organization most fans barely understand. And hosting it is not just about football. It is about attention, legitimacy, power. FIFA does not build the stadiums. It does not carry the debt. It does not stay when the cameras leave. But every 4 years, it sells the dream again. And somehow, someone keeps buying it. And by 2026, the price would be paid by the fans themselves. Qatar was the announcement that made people stop and stare. Not because the World Cup had never gone somewhere new, but because this was something different. Qatar was the smallest country by land area ever chosen to host the tournament. It had no deep World Cup tradition, no ready-made network of major stadiums, and summer heat so extreme that the tournament would eventually have to be moved to winter. Russia raised a different question. It was not small, it was not lacking power, it was not an outsider to global politics. And maybe that was the warning. 2 very different hosts had been chosen on the same day. One showed how far the World Cup could move from football tradition. The other showed how close it could move toward political power. But both pointed to the same uncomfortable truth. The World Cup had become too valuable to remain a simple tournament. Yet what appeared to be a shocking decision would soon begin to look like something more sinister.
A sordid corruption scandal had enveloped FIFA.
$10 million sent to accounts controlled by Jack Warner, money used for cash withdrawals, credit card payments, and alleged money laundering schemes.
And this was only part of the rot spreading through FIFA. Joseph Blatter, the man who had led the organization for years, would later be forced out during the wider FIFA corruption crisis. And of the 22 voting officials involved in that decision, more than half would later be indicted, banned, or investigated in connection with FIFA scandals. This was not just corruption around a tournament, it was a warning. The World Cup had become so valuable that the path to hosting it no longer looked like a clean competition. It looked like access, influence, and power concentrated in a room most fans would never see. But corruption was only the visible part. The deeper question was why the prize was worth corrupting in the first place. FIFA had learned to control something it did not create. Not football itself. The feeling of football. The songs belonged to the fans. The streets belonged to the people, but the attention belonged to FIFA. For 1 month, a host country gets the cameras, the skyline shots, the anthem, the leaders beside the trophy, a chance to look modern, stable, powerful. That is what FIFA sells. Not just a tournament, a version of a country the world is meant to remember. Hosting the World Cup is sold as an honor. But for some countries, it becomes a trap dressed like a trophy, a month of glory, years of consequences. The beauty is televised, the burden is not. Brazil should have been the dream host, football's spiritual home, the country of Pelé, Samba, Maracana, and 5 World Cups. But in 2014, as the world arrived for football's biggest event,
around 1,000 homeless workers and indigenous groups from central Brazil marched towards the huge Migrant stadium in the capital, Brasilia. As troops opened fire with tear gas and stun grenades, the protesters scattered. Some turned to fire their primitive weapons.
Crowds marched against the cost. And suddenly, the country most associated with football was asking the question no host wants to answer. Was this really for the people, or just a performance for the rest of the world? Because the World Cup does not arrive alone. It arrives with promises. But the problem with a spectacle is that it has a deadline. The opening match cannot be delayed. The cameras are coming whether the budget makes sense or not. And once a country wins the bid, the dream begins to collect its price. Brazil's World Cup bill was estimated at around $15 billion. For many Brazilians, the contrast became impossible to ignore. New stadiums rose, but old frustrations remained. Crowded hospitals, strained public transport. Across the city, millions still lived in slums. The tournament had arrived, but so had a darker question. What had been sacrificed to host it? Brazil spent billions building and renovating stadiums, 12 stadiums, even though FIFA required only 8. In Manaus, deep in the Amazon, Brazil built Arena Amazonia. It cost hundreds of millions of dollars. It hosted 4 World Cup games, and then the tournament moved on. For 1 month, it looked alive. After that, it sat waiting for a crowd that was never coming back. And Manaus was not the only warning. In Brasilia, Mané Garrincha became one of the most expensive football stadiums ever built, a monument of concrete and ambition. But the city did not have the weekly football demand to match its scale. Together, they showed what happens when a country builds for the broadcast first and its own future second. The World Cup lasts a month, but the choices made for it can shape a country for years. And every stadium carries the shadow of what else might have been built: a clinic, a school, a train line. The final whistle ends the tournament. It does not erase the trade-off. But in Qatar, the cost looked different. It was not mainly debt, it was labor.
Today we celebrate, but tomorrow the work begins.
Its World Cup-linked preparations were often estimated above $200 billion, much of it tied to transforming the country's infrastructure. But the darker question was whose lives had to bend around the deadline. Long before the World Cup, Qatar's economy depended on migrant workers. Many were tied to employers through the kafala sponsorship system, a system that gave employers enormous control over a worker's job, legal status, and ability to leave. The World Cup did not invent this system, but it accelerated the pressure around it. It placed an already vulnerable workforce inside a countdown the whole world was watching. Some workers arrived already trapped by debt. Human rights groups documented recruitment fees running from hundreds to thousands of dollars. Then came Qatar's sweltering heat. In summer, temperatures could approach 50 degrees. The stadiums were engineered to defeat the heat, but the workers outside had no such luxury. And when workers died, even the numbers became contested. The death toll remains disputed. Different sides use different definitions. But for the families waiting at home, definitions did not erase the grief. This is the system behind the tournament. FIFA does not force countries to host the World Cup. Countries chase it. Cities compete for it. Politicians celebrate winning it. But the business model is not equal. FIFA captures the most valuable parts: broadcasting rights, sponsorships, ticketing, marketing. In the 2019 to 2022 cycle, FIFA generated a record $7.57 billion. For 2023 to 2026, it expects that number to rise to $13 billion. FIFA gets the billions. Yet the host pays the bill. Security, transport, public services, infrastructure, and after the tournament, maintenance. This is not just a football tournament. It is a transfer of risk. From the organization that owns the spectacle to the cities and countries willing to carry its weight. But something has started to change. The tournament has become bigger, more expensive, harder to justify, and the list of countries willing to host it has started to shrink. But this did not kill the dream. It changed who could afford to chase it. The World Cup is no longer a normal prize any country can chase. it is becoming a dangerous luxury, something only the richest, the most ambitious, or the most image-hungry hosts can still afford to touch. And when a prize becomes too heavy for one host, the next solution is to spread the burden. That is why 2026 looks different. For the first time, the World Cup is spread across 3 countries: the United States, Canada, Mexico. But the cost has not disappeared, it has moved. This time, the warning was not ghost stadiums, it was access. Because when a tournament becomes this valuable, even the fans who give it life can become the ones priced out of it. In 2026, that warning became visible in the ticket prices. Tickets could start at $60, but later stage prices could climb into the thousands. And with dynamic pricing, official resale, and added fees, the World Cup ticket was no longer just a key to a game fans loved. It was becoming an asset. Bought, resold, marked up, traded on an official marketplace where FIFA could take a cut. And that changed what access meant. Because the World Cup had always depended on ordinary fans for its soul. The drums, the flags, the songs. The people who saved for years just to see their country play. But when access becomes an asset, the fan becomes something else. A customer trapped in a losing battle against the market. A World Cup can still be full, still profitable, still beautiful on television. But if the people who bring the noise, color, songs, and chaos are pushed outside the gates, the stadium may still be packed, but the game becomes emptier. By now, the pattern was clear. The World Cup exacted different costs from different people. In Brazil, public money became monuments. In Qatar, the deadline became a human rights reckoning. And in 2026, ordinary fans risked being priced out of the dream they helped create. But the strangest question was still ahead. If the cost had become this obvious, why were powerful countries still reaching for it? The answer lies with where the World Cup is going next. 2030 will stretch across Morocco, Spain, and Portugal, with centenary matches in South America. A tournament so large that even its geography becomes part of the spectacle. Then 2034 goes to Saudi Arabia, a country with enormous wealth, a country investing heavily in sport, a country trying to reshape how the world sees it. And that is the point. The World Cup had not lost its power. It had simply become a prize for a more specific kind of host. Because the countries still reaching for the World Cup are not only buying matches, they are buying attention, recognition, soft power, a month at the center of the world, a story broadcast to billions. That is why the dream survives. Not because the cost disappeared, but because the image became valuable enough to justify it. And that is what makes the World Cup so powerful. It does not look like a business deal. It looks like childhood, like belonging, like the world stopping for one game. And that beauty is real. That is exactly why the bill is so easy to hide. But when the final whistle blows, the spectacle ends for everyone watching. For the host, the consequences begin. And 4 years later, FIFA sells the dream again. Another host, another promise that this time the bill will be worth it. Maybe that is the real power of the World Cup. Not that countries cannot see the cost, but that the dream is beautiful enough to make them reach for it anyway. So when the next opening ceremony begins, the cameras will show what FIFA has always sold. The ultimate celebration of the world's game. The color, the noise, the feeling that football belongs to everyone. But beneath the celebration, the same question will still be waiting. Was this really football's greatest honor? Or just the most expensive way to be seen?